We'll begin with the discomfort, the place you hesitate to confront directly. Have you ever felt out of place because you appear younger than your actual age? Have you realized how this perceived advantage can subtly cast a shadow over you? Perhaps people compliment your youthful looks, tossing out remarks like, "You don't look your age," and you respond with a smile, a nod, or a polite thank you. Yet, internally, something feels amiss. What if I suggested that your youthful appearance isn't just happenstance? What if I told you there's a deeper, rarely spoken psychological truth behind it? Carl Jung may not have specifically discussed looking young, but he did explore the soul, archetypes, and the masks we don to shield ourselves from pain. Herein lies a crucial insight. Appearing younger than you are might signify a soul that resists aging, not due to lack of years, but because it harbors unresolved issues, because it remains ensnared. The body may deceive, but the unconscious mind is invariably truthful. If your visage doesn't reflect your years, it might be your unconscious trying to communicate something elusive. Consider this. The world sees youth when they look at you, but what do you see? What remains hidden behind that unlined face, that vibrant energy? Which unhealed scars prevent you from aging? Jung posited that unacknowledged elements of ourselves shape our destinies. What if your fate has been to reflect the youthfulness you haven't released, not from vanity, but from fear? Eternal youth is epitomized in the myth of the pure eternus, the eternal child. Jung described this archetype with clinical precision and profound empathy. The eternal child resists growing up, not from immaturity, but because maturation feels like a series of losses. The end of fantasies, the loss of protection, the dissolution of a perfect future. Thus, the body remains youthful, aligning with a soul that is stuck. This is where discomfort begins, because appearing young might be flattering, but it can also indicate that you haven't experienced enough life to bear its marks, that your soul hasn't yet waded through the mire of hardship and loss. Gaze into the mirror. Do you really see youth, or someone trapped in a phase they should have transcended? Could your youthful appearance be an archetypal mask, an unconscious defense mechanism you constructed unwittingly? Jung spoke of social masks, personas we adopt to shield ourselves from judgment. Could your preserved youth be such a mask? Is this how you avoid confronting decay, the passage of time, the symbolic death inherent in maturing? Here's a challenging notion few are willing to accept. Aging isn't merely about tallying years. It's about the soul's transformation. If your soul remains unchanged, your body won't show the signs of aging as it naturally should. Thus, eternal youth is not a blessing. It's a trap. We're not discussing mere cosmetics, creams, or genetics here. We are delving into the soul, the unconscious, the shadow, those parts of you veiled beneath the bright facade of an eternal smile. The "you haven't changed a bit" compliments. But deep down, you know you're different. You know something inside is unraveling. Unprocessed memories, unmade decisions, unlived lives. Jung starkly stated, what you deny controls you, and what you accept transforms you. Which aspect of your age are you denying? What phase are you afraid to let go of? Apparent youth can be a golden cage, hindering your passage through the natural stages of the soul. It doesn't matter how many candles are on your birthday cake if your psyche remains tethered to the same point. If you haven't embraced the threshold of individuation, if you haven't encountered the archetype of the wise old man, the inner mentor who no longer has anything to prove. And now, the darker revelation. Some appear young because they are internally fractured, their emotional growth halted by trauma. Something within them halted. Was childhood painful, adolescence a battlefield, adulthood an unexplored realm? Hence, the body clings to the form it had when life shattered. It clings to the past because the present is too daunting. Is this true for you? Have you considered it? What moment in your life was so devastating that your unconscious chose not to progress? Because while the body continues to age, albeit subtly, the soul can remain stagnant for decades. Looking younger is a mirror, and mirrors don't always reflect what we wish to see. Sometimes they show us what we refuse to acknowledge, that we haven't fully lived yet, that we haven't integrated our shadow, that we are still trapped in the wounded inner child who clings to the past. Yet, this isn't merely a sentence. It's an opportunity, a call, a harsh invitation to delve inward, to stop fearing time, to allow the soul to age, to mature, to stumble, to err. Because only when the mask dies can the true self emerge. Depth psychology doesn't aim to comfort you. It strives to dismantle you. Jung didn't want you to feel content. He wanted you to transform. This involves discomfort. It means confronting what you've avoided, acknowledging that perhaps you've feigned youth for years, not for admiration, but to evade memory, to resist change, to avoid crossing a necessary threshold. Yet, crossing it is the only path to true liberation. Because freedom isn't found in maintaining youth. It's in embracing aging, in recognizing that each wrinkle, each downfall, each loss signifies that you have lived, that you are advancing. Jung noted that the first half of life is devoted to building the ego, but the second half is about dismantling it. What if your youthful appearance is merely postponing that second phase? What if you cling to the ego because letting it go seems like losing your identity? Here's a harsh reality. Only those who have embraced aging, who have experienced loss, who have failed yet persevered, truly age. Eternal youth is not a sign of vitality, but often of stagnation. If letting go doesn't pain you, it's because you haven't grasped what it truly means to live. Looking young is not a compliment if it conceals a wound. It's a clue, a whisper from the unconscious, alerting you haven't moved forward yet. And until you do, your soul will continue to repeat the same cycles. Because that's how the psyche operates. It places you in the same scenarios, the same relationships, the same errors, until you awaken. Do you truly wish to awaken? If so, cease celebrating your perpetual youth. Start questioning what it masks, what remains unsaid, what part of your soul is still dormant, awaiting your courage to mature. Spiritual aging isn't decay, it's evolution. It's integration. It's the moment when you no longer need to appear as anything. You simply are. You simply exist. You simply live from your core, not from the facade. Jung spoke of integrating the wise old man, the archetype who requires no applause, no flattery, who has lived enough to cease the pretense. Have you integrated this figure? If not, regardless of your chronological age, you remain youthful, but in the most detrimental way. Because youth without maturity is merely superficial, and what lacks depth shatters at the first impact. Let me be clear, your apparent youth is not a gift. It's a mission. It's a sign that something remains unresolved. And until you complete that cycle, you will stay confined. Don't flee from time. Let it embrace you, let it transform you. Because only by accepting aging will you truly begin to live. And though seldom voiced, this is the most spiritual act you can undertake in this lifetime. Looking young can be fortunate, but it can also serve as a caution. The question is, are you prepared to heed it? And if you've reached this point, perhaps you're starting to perceive it. It's not about your skin, your genes, or your lifestyle. It's about the soul, and when the soul resists aging, clinging invisibly to memories of what once was, it often does so not out of vanity, but out of guilt. Have you considered how much guilt can be associated with a youthful appearance? How much suppressed anguish a face can conceal that yet shows no signs of time's passage? Here we delve into another, deeper stratum. We're no longer discussing mere appearances, but the burdens unseen. And indeed, it's paradoxical. The lighter your presence appears, the heavier the narrative you might be concealing. Reflect on this. Perhaps you haven't aged because you haven't permitted yourself to, because something within refuses to conclude chapters, because you've endured a loss, an abandonment, a failure so severe that your internal clock halted, not as defiance, but as a protective measure. Trauma, when left unprocessed, acts like a spell, halting time. Since then, you've existed in a perpetual limbo, disguised as vitality, but laden with specters, for the unconscious never forgets. It can disguise, it can divert, it can employ the mask of youth as a barrier, a shield, a prison. But it remembers, and what it recalls, it reenacts. In subtle ways, it crafts relationships where you continually feel the youngest, the novice, the one still learning. Even if you're older than others, even if you've experienced more than many, yet you persist in feeling youthful, not because you are, but because your internal rhythm, your cycles, your profound needs, all shift toward new phases. Phases demanding introspection, depth, authenticity, but you force them to conform to a mold that no longer suits. And then symptoms emerge. Not physical, at least not initially. Existential symptoms. A void of purpose. A warped relationship with pleasure. An incapacity to commit to endeavors that transcend you. A perpetual sense of unreality, as though your life isn't entirely yours. What versions of yourself remain unborn because you're too preoccupied with maintaining an outdated image? What heights could you reach if you discarded that facade? Yes, youth has its appeal, but truth sets you free. Youth might grant you access, but truth provides you roots. And roots, though unseen, are what sustain the tree amid the storm. So examine yourself closely, not in the mirror, but internally. Ask yourself if you're prepared to inhabit your age as an act of empowerment, not resignation. If you're ready to let time flow through you, to let history mold you, to let injuries transform you, because only then, only when you cease appearing young to start being eternal in a new way, will you uncover what Jung suggested in every line. True growth isn't about looking younger, but about becoming more. More yourself, more aware, more liberated, more present. And that, though often unspoken, is genuine rebirth. And just when you thought all this was about appearance, about age, about external perceptions, comes the final revelation. The quietest, the most profound. Appearing younger than you are can be the most sophisticated way of vanishing from your own life. Yes, like a well-dressed ghost, an observer of your existence, an actor trapped in a role you no longer choose but continue playing because the audience still applauds. But what if you lowered the curtain? What if, for the first time, you stepped out of character, not to age, but to truly embody who you are in this moment, in this body that doesn't deceive, even if you persist in disguising it? Because true transformation isn't visible on the skin. It's evident in the eyes, in how you embrace silence, in your newfound indifference to others' opinions. And it is here, precisely here, that the paradox fully unfolds. Only when you accept the passage of time does time cease to dominate you. Because you're no longer attempting to outpace it, no longer striving to appear younger, nor to prove more. You're merely present, and from that presence, something novel, something radical, something inimitable emerges. Inner authority, the kind of presence that seeks no permission, that requires no validation, that communicates with few words, yet leaves a lasting impression. The kind of individual who doesn't chase youth because they've discovered something infinitely more precious: depth. And if you've made it this far, if you didn't close the video when it began to challenge you, when the ideas started dismantling what you believe to be true, then perhaps you're prepared. Not to alter what others observe, but to deactivate what you think you must be. Maybe today is the day you cease feigning youth and start embodying wisdom. And yes, this is the moment where I ask something of you, not out of obligation, not for an algorithm, but because if this video stirred something within you, a question, a discomfort, a half-digested truth, I want you to transform it into action. Subscribe, not just to watch more videos, but so this isn't the last time you permit yourself to think this deeply. And comment below with the following phrase: "The soul also has an age, and mine is pleading to be acknowledged." Leave that phrase not as a gesture to me, but as a vote to yourself, to cease pretending, to stop delaying, because you know it, you sense it, you are too vibrant to continue appearing as someone you are not. And now, yes, turn off the light, remove the disguise, and approach your shadow with open eyes. see you on the next descent, or perhaps not, because some, once they awaken, never return to slumber. Farewell.